Hey guys, Marcus Melnick here with Firearm Mentor. Hope you're enjoying my YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These little things are free to you and really help the channel. I appreciate your support. Enjoy. Thank you.
The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters. Greetings and welcome to the Personal Safety Show. This is Marcus Melnick from Stress to Logic and Firearm Mentor, your host. And as promised in the beginning of the show, or the first half of the show, we're going to go over some updates in the firearms industry. The first update is that Glock is going to discontinue dozens of legacy models. So it's word is circulating that a ton of Glock models, some of them have been around for decades, could be headed for discontinuing. Between posts on gun forums, videos from giant Glock retailers, and a list on Glock's European website, it would appear that as many as 26 models and 100 SKUs might soon be removed from the company's catalog. When you look through it, most models appear to be guns in the following calibers: 357 SIG, 40 Smith & Wesson, including the Gen 5 models, and 45 GAP. GAP stands for Glock Automatic Pistol, and it is a shortened 45 caliber bullet that really never caught on. I had a friend when I worked in public safety. He got one in the size of roughly like a Glock 26, Glock 27. But the problem was it was so unpopular, nobody made holsters for it. You'd have to get a holster that was a multi-caliber or multi-firearm holster. Also gone are the company's few remaining production Gen 3s and most of the Gen 4s, anything basically with upgraded sights such as Amerigo Bolds or Glock Night sights and the new G49. This heavily impacts guns that were grandfathered on California's approved handgun roster, which ain't so good for people out there. Keep in mind that none of this should be shocking, as the G49 was billed from the beginning as a limited run. Glock was really the only company trying to make the 45 GAP happen, and many handgun makers have long ago stepped away from 357 SIG and 40 Smith & Wesson. Case in point, SIG has not produced pistols in those latter two calibers for several years. Plus, it is common for gun makers to clean up their catalogs and discontinue certain configurations wholesale, something that Glock hasn't done in a long time. People who enjoy 45 ACP, which stands for Automatic Colt Pistol, and 10mm Auto, as well as 380 ACP fans, will still have lots to choose from, at least in the Gen 5 models, as will folks who stock 9mm in deep quantity. So what does this mean for the big picture? Well, it's clear that offerings like the new Glock Aimpoint A-Cut COA line, introduced earlier this year, that optics-ready models will likely be front and center moving forward, and most of the models mentioned for deletion simply are not capable of accepting a dot right out of the box. Is Glock clearing the way for Gen 6? Possibly. In the meantime, you can bet the new old stock specimens of these discontinued guns, now instant collectibles to diehard Glock fans, will be hot commodities soon offered, while available, at below minimum advertised prices, since they will likely be MAP pricing, which is pricing that a manufacturer says you can't sell the gun or you can't advertise the gun for lower than this price, but likely these are going to be clearance guns. Might be a good time to shop for Glock. Now here's a little interesting, this is an opinion, it's my opinion. The Austrian engineer, whose name was Gaston Glock, he's the guy that invented the Glock pistol, he was the founder of the Glock company. He passed away December 27th, 2023 at the age of 94, according to CNN and the New York Times. And he was best known for inventing a Glock pistol, which is, as you know, a lightweight semi-automatic handgun that revolutionized the firearms industry. So I had heard rumors from various engineers and other employees that Mr. Glock was kind of against any changes. He was against changing the grip angle to more match the 1911, which for a lot of people is very, very comfortable. Same thing with the safety. And there were other things on the Glock pistol that he said, absolutely not, we're not going to be adding. So I had heard that the company, now that Gaston had passed away, was going to make some interesting changes. I have a feeling that this may be part of those changes. I want my listeners to know that this is my dream, teaching people about safety. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for my listeners, I couldn't live my dream. So on behalf of my family and myself, I want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me to live my dream. And I also want to continue to live my dream, and I'm excited to continue to spread the word of safety. Recently, I began a new service as a conference keynote speaker. So if anyone would like for me to speak at future events, or if anyone knows of an introduction or would like to discuss how we can work with one another, I'd love to do just that. The keynote speaking website is www.stress2logic.com. That is STRESS2logic.com. If you're aware of any conference speaking engagements where you'd like to have me speak, I'd love an introduction. You can always share my electronic business card, which is Marcus Melnick, MarcusMelnick.com. Now, back to the show. One of the things that I pride myself on in my concealed carry classes is I really don't delve into politics. I think politics are separate from safety. I teach safety, and I teach the, for lack of a better term, the Miyagi-Do method, not the Cobra Kai method. So I don't teach people to be aggressive or to seek out trouble. I actually teach people to be defensive and to avoid the trouble. With that said, the Second Amendment and politics are intertwined. And according to the NRA America's First Freedom site, there are 7 things that the Trump administration has done for Second Amendment freedoms. In the first months of his historic second term, Trump's administration has wasted no time in reaffirming its commitment to protecting and expanding Second Amendment rights across the country. From high-profile executive orders to targeted legal reviews, President Trump is making it clear that law-abiding Americans must be empowered to exercise their rights to keep and bear arms. Most recently, the Trump administration initiated a series of actions to reinforce Second Amendment rights and reduce federal oversight on firearms. Number 1, a review of all of Biden's actions. On February 7th, President Trump signed an executive order directing the Attorney General to review all Biden-era firearms regulations with the goal of identifying and eliminating any rule infringing upon the constitutional rights of gun owners. Quote, the Second Amendment is an indispensable safeguard of security and liberty. It has preserved the right of American people to protect ourselves, our families, and our freedoms since the founding of our great nation, stated President Trump. Because it is foundational to maintaining all other rights held by Americans, the right to keep and bear arms must not be infringed. Number 2, he ended the ATF's zero-tolerance policy. Just very recently, a couple weeks ago, on April 7th, the Department of Justice announced an end to the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or ATF to be short, their zero-tolerance policy for federal firearms licensees, meaning gun stores. Sometimes they're called kitchen table dealers if it's an at-home business. The ATF says, quote, the enhanced regulatory enforcement policy, aka the zero tolerance policy, was repealed, and industry operations inspections will no longer be held to these previously set guidelines. This page has been removed to comply with the new policy change. Now, let me just explain something here, what this all means. There are specific procedures and specific federal forms that need to be completed when purchasing a firearm from a gun store. We may have heard the term 4473. That's the big pamphlet that you have to fill out, and it asks you all sorts of questions, personal identification information, as well as things like, are you the actual buyer of the gun? Are you addicted to narcotics? Have you been adjudicated mentally defective? Do you have any felonies, any domestic-related violence charges, etc.? And the person has to certify it, and then it goes through a background check. Now, keep in mind that the people filling these out work at a gun store. They are not six-figure people who necessarily have gone to college and are educated and have attention to detail. So a lot of these people, it's their first job out of the military, or they've been around and maybe they're older, they don't know computers. Sometimes the 4473 is done on a computer. In any event, under this zero tolerance thing that President Biden enacted or basically set forth, if a T was not crossed or an I was not dotted, which sounds really trivial, then there was a violation. And I'll give you an example of a violation that occurred when I worked at a gun store. And we didn't get fined or anything on it, but we got corrected. If it asks you, this form asks you for your place of birth. And if you write Chicago, comma, IL, we got dinged for that because we have to spell out the entire state. Under Biden's zero tolerance policy, that would have resulted in fines for the people. Also, if someone's born in another country, they have to list the city and the country, not just the country. There was no guidance on this, and we had to change the way that we were filling out the forms. So Trump's saying, if it's a clerical error, okay, it's a clerical error. Let's fix it. Let's move on. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to yank someone's license for forgetting to write out Illinois or even misspelling Illinois, not leaving the S on the end. I think people that live in the state know how to spell it, but there are spelling errors. It happens. All right, the next thing he did was he terminated the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Early in his second term, he dissolved the White House Office of Gun Violence and Prevention and directed the U.S. Department of Justice to review firearm regulations to ensure they align with a broad interpretation of guns. Now, I don't necessarily agree with terminating the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. I think there should be some studies on it. As a matter of fact, Florida State, they just had a shooting at the college, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I think that there should be an Office of Violence Prevention, but I don't think it should be gun violence prevention. I think it should be an Office of Violence Prevention. Because as Trump actually just said, following the shooting in Florida, when someone said, what are you going to do about the guns? He said, it's not about the guns, it's about the person behind the trigger. So I really think that we do have a violence problem, or at least a fear of a violence problem in the United States, and we need to address certain things. One of those things is mental health, but there's been funding that's been cut from mental health. So poop or get off the pot, President Trump. If you think mental health is an issue in the, quote, gun violence or violence within society, then don't cut funding for mental health. And people, it's really funny. They have this perception of, oh, Marcus is a gun guy. He's a Trumper. I'm not telling anyone who I voted for, and who I voted for is nobody's business. They make an maybe correct, maybe incorrect correlation. In the past several years, since the pandemic and the riots, the rise in gun ownership from liberal-leaning political people has jumped. I mean, holy cow. I get people in classes who are part of Moms Demand Action, the Million Moms March, people who had solicited for changes in the gun law. And the funny thing is, one of those people contacted me. They were very anti-gun. They ended up getting a gun. They were getting threats. And I got a phone call. I would like to buy this shotgun. And they had advocated for partially for the assault weapons ban in Illinois, or the PICA Act, Protect Illinois Communities Act, which I call the PU Act because it stinks. And I had to tell this former anti-gunner, sorry, that's not available in Illinois. That is considered an assault weapon. So just a little bit of irony there. All right, let's talk about Health and Human Services and guns. The Department of Health and Human Services removed advisories that previously treated guns as a public health issue. The Biden administration policy has declared that gun violence, quote, gun violence, is a public health crisis, as if gun violence is a virus that HHS needs to treat like a pandemic. After an executive order from President Trump, HHS removed this page from its website. Specifically, this was known as the Firearm Violence in America webpage. I did see a meme. I sent it to my doctor. The meme was a guy in a doctor's office, and the doctor said, "Do you have any guns at home?" And the patient says, "At home? I have guns in your office." So it was just a little, kind of a funny little segue there. All right, on March 27th, President Trump signed a wide-ranging executive order titled Making the District of Columbia Safe and Beautiful. The order aims to restore public safety and order in the nation's capital and reaffirms Americans' rights to protect themselves through lawful firearms possession and concealed carry. In what many call a landmark move, the order created a D.C. Safe and Beautiful task force to coordinate efforts between the federal and local authorities. Among its many responsibilities, the task force is charged with, quote, collaborating with appropriate local government entities to provide assistance to increase the speed and lower the cost of processing concealed carry license requests in the District of Columbia, end quote. The Trump administration's order clearly signals that the Second Amendment cannot be treated as a second-class citizen right, not even in the federal enclave of D.C. The next thing he did was he challenged local licensing bureaus. The DOJ recently launched an investigation into Los Angeles County's concealed carry licensing procedures, probing whether law-abiding Californians are being systematically denied their rights through excessive bureaucracy and red tape. This aligns with the spirit of the U.S. Supreme Court's 2022 decision in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin, which struck down New York's discretionary permit regime and affirmed that the right to bear arms extends beyond the home. Justice Clarence Thomas, writing for a majority in Bruin, cautioned that even shall-issue regimes could become unconstitutional if processing delays or exorbitant fees effectively deny citizens their rights. Boy, I'd love for them to see the Illinois law, because that is very expensive. For someone to get a concealed carry license, it takes months. Next, Trump is even touching Hollywood. On April 4th, in a highly symbolic move, the DOJ restored Mel Gibson's gun rights, which have been revoked in 2011. Several other individuals also had their rights restored. In January, the Trump administration named Gibson, along with actors Sylvester Stallone and Jon Voight, as special ambassadors to Hollywood. While criticized by some in the legacy media, in a sign that things may be changing with the Washington Post, a news outlet one could previously count on to take anti-Second Amendment position when discussing firearms, that paper discussed the restoration of the right to arms with more accuracy than one would expect. The decision by DOJ underscores the administration's broader philosophy. If someone has served their sentence and paid their debt and are no longer a threat to themselves or others, then their constitutional rights, including their rights to keep and bear arms, should be restored. These actions reveal a comprehensive and proactive strategy to defend the Second Amendment, not just in theory but in practice. From the corridors of D.C. to the streets of L.A., the Trump administration is signaling that our Second Amendment protected rights are not privileges to be doled out by bureaucrats, but that this right is fundamental to our liberty. This is promising. I think it's moving in the correct direction. I don't think that people who shouldn't have guns should have guns. Those are the people that have psychological issues, criminal records, that have violence in them, a history of violence. I mean, if someone has a felony because they forgot to claim something on their taxes, that's a nonviolent felony, but gun rights are taken away because it's a felony. So those things are looked at on a case-by-case basis. Earlier I said I would mention the shooting on the college campus of Florida State University, and that's what I want to go into right now. I have a friend whose daughter goes there. She's perfectly safe. She's fine, but wow, what a scary, scary thing. So the FSU shooting resulted in 2 dead and 6 injured after police say deputy's son opened fire on campus. So here's what happened. 20-year-old son of Leon County Sheriff's deputy used his mother's gun to go on a shooting rampage at FSU's Tallahassee campus Thursday, killing 2 people and wounding 6 others, law enforcement officials said. The alleged shooter was himself shot and taken to a local hospital. The surviving student victims were listed in fair condition. The first reports of the shooting came in around noon. Sirens wailed for about an hour afterward, and at around 3:30 p.m., the university was telling the campus community, quote, law enforcement has neutralized the threat, end quote, but warned that multiple buildings were still active crime scenes. Shortly thereafter, the authorities said they had secured the campus. And this is a developing story. It's horrible. With the political climate that's going on today, the mom, who is I believe, retired deputy sheriff, but she may be responsible because she allowed her firearm to fall into the hands of someone under 21 who shouldn't have had it. Now, if he broke into a safe to get it, that's a different story. There's no culpability, there's no liability. But the shock and sadness that the students feel is really, really high stress. And of course, it's right before finals. And you go outside after a tragedy, and what do? You hear the birds chirping softly as the people kind of cling to each other in a makeshift memorial that grew on the sidewalk, leading that a gruesome scene led to. Some came alone, others came over in pairs or with groups of friends. Many brought flowers and balloons and teddy bears. Others left letters and lit candles to honor victims and comfort the survivors. So, another school shooting. I don't know what to say. There's just a lot of rhetoric out there. Some are saying now, oh, well, we should arm the students. Your gun rights don't stop at the border of the university. And while I tend to agree with that, in theory, I don't know if in reality that would be a good thing. Perhaps employees of the university should be armed, or at least have the option of carrying concealed on the university. Might not be the students. I mean, these students they're not quite adults yet, but they're still not children yet. They're in that in-between stage. And I will tell you, when I was that age, when I was 19, 20, I thought I was an adult. I thought I knew everything. I took on the world. And as I got older, I realized how dumb I actually am. And that's a little self-deprecating humor because I'm not dumb. But at the same time, every time in my life, I think, every point in my life, I thought, well, hey, I'm the best I can be based upon what I have been. So, and that wasn't a Vice President Harris quote, we have to unburden what we've been burdened by, or whatever nonsense that she said that made no sense to me. In any event, as we are approaching the last few minutes of the show, I want to wish all of my listeners both a happy Easter, and this is airing on Easter, and a happy Passover. Today is the last day of Passover for the Jewish people. It is a more religious day. And I hope that everyone is spending time with their families. That's the real reason why we live, is to be with our families, to be happy, to be healthy. And I want to wish everyone out there a very happy and healthy and safe holiday. I know I'll be spending time with my relatives shortly, and the ham is gonna cut the ham. So I'm kind of like the ham of the family. If you haven't seen my sense of humor, you're probably rolling your eyes. In any event, I'm the ham carver, and I love this family. They're great. A family that shoots together stays together, and we've all gone to the range multiple times. Very, very interesting. I do have a class coming up May 17th and 18th, and it's kind of funny. 2020 was a boom year for my business. The results of the pandemic, results of the anti-police rioting, the destroyed property, the people that got hurt. So in 2020, there were just a ton of people that went after concealed carry permits. And now it's 2025. So this is the year that renewals are due. So I'm reaching out to all my former customers. If you have a renewal or you're interested in an initial class, you can register at www.firearmmentor.com/classes. If you go to that page, scroll down a little bit, I have all of the dates of the upcoming classes. It's once a month, and they're scheduled through, I believe, September. So hopefully something works with your schedule. Because of the sheer volume of the students that are going to be doing renewals, I may even have extra classes for those individuals. Meantime, I hope you enjoy the holiday and stay safe. Tune in next week for another episode. Thank you.
We have monthly concealed carry license CCL classes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Dates can be seen at firearmmentor.com/classes. If you have a question, we can be reached at www.firearmmentorcard.com. That is our electronic business card, has all of our contact information and links in it. It's the easiest way to get a hold of us. Until next time, stay safe out there, and I'll see you at the shooting range. This is Marcus Melnick from Firearm Mentor signing off. The views expressed are not those of local community broadcasting, WYML LP, or its management, volunteers, or underwriters.